Well, hello, and welcome to my latest video. Movie review time. Yes, we've not had one of these for a while. I've been concentrating on cycling. So, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. What's it like? Is it any good? Should you spend your money? Stick around and you'll find out. Now, my son Joel is going back to university shortly. So I said to him, we need to go to the movies. And he said, what's on? And I said, The Courier. And he was like, oh, God. What is it with these one-word job titles? The courier, the postman, the IT contractor, the chartered accountant, the dustman. Okay, Joel, okay, I said. He said, what's it about? I said, it's about a courier. He said, is it a bit of a bike courier? He said, I ain't seen a film about a bike courier. I said, no, it's not a courier. It's courier. Benedict Cumberbatch. I know, Russian Cold War spy film, something like that. Oh, for God's sake, he said, a spy film. Not like Bridge of Spies, which he and I saw together and which we thought was pants, actually. Only saved by the presence of the sublime Mark Rylance, who almost, but couldn't quite, incidentally save Dunkirk. No. I said, not the courier then, not the courier. How about that Chinese thing? What Chinese thing? He said suspiciously, obviously thinking I meant some kind of 4-hour communist documentary about the Cultural Revolution. No, I'd say it's a Marvel film. Oh, he said, that Marvel thing, the kung fu, the karate thing. I said, yeah. He said, yeah, okay, I've seen a few reviews, let's go. So we went. Our favourite place, Dulwich Picture House, and we went to see this Marvel film. So, what did I think? Well, actually, when it started, I thought I'm really going to enjoy this. Right? I'm kind of regressing. I used to like these. I used to like kind of cerebral films. These kind of I don't know, kitchen sink dramas. Stuff with a bit of important stuff. But now I'm 65. I've gone back to my younger days, and I like watching these kind of Marvel rubbish. So the first sort of half hour, 40 minutes or so, I thought I'm really enjoying this. I mean, it's a kind of Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon kind of thing. There's a character, Shang-Chi, of the what do you call it? The title role. Yeah, the title role. The title role of Shang-Chi is played by whatever his name is. I'll try and work it out. And there's him and his sidekick, his friend, who's a girl called Katie. Actually, I think is really good. And anyway, for various reasons, he ends up in a massive fight on a bus with a whole load of baddies, as you do, in San Francisco, going up and down, these roads like that. And this fight goes on for... And I thought it was really well done. And there's a really kind of funny side scene in it, where there's a guy, a bit of a nerdy, bit of a geeky guy. Anyway, of course, he films the whole fight on his phone and then live streams it to YouTube and gets 2 million views, which, of course... For people like me, aspiring, I'm not really an aspiring YouTuber. I'm fairly successful, but I haven't had 2 million views. Anyway, I thought that bit was quite clever and quite knowing. Anyway, so after this fight, and he gets into this fight because some baddies are trying to steal a kind of emerald pendant thing that he's working for various complicated reasons. So he then gets on a flight with his friend Katie, who says, I'm not taking you, Katie. And then Katie says, no, I'm coming. And they go to Macau, and where he meets up with his sister. And he's estranged from his sister, and they're also estranged from their father. Now, their father, right, stay with me, their father is the Ten Rings man of the title. And he has lived for 1,000 years, stay with me, wearing these rings, these 5 rings on each arm, okay, not on his fingers, on his arm. And he is some kind of evil genius mastermind, and has been for 1,000 years, because these rings not only give him superpowers, but they give him the gift of kind of eternal life until he dies. But then you think, well, where is this evil empire? I mean, what has he actually done with it? I mean, apart from the Tories winning the last election with an 80-seat majority, apart from, Brexit having gone through, where is the evil mastermind behind? What has he actually been doing? You never really find out. Anyway, he's a baddie. And at some stage in the past, he met this woman, fell in love, and the woman was a greater fighter than he was, and so he gave up his rings, and he had 2 children. But when he gave up his rings, his wife got murdered then by a bunch of baddies, stay with me, and his children, for various reasons, got estranged from him and moved away, which is why this guy, after the big fight on the bus, is coming to Macau, lured there by his father and possibly by his sister. I wasn't quite sure about that. For a particular reason. Now, the reason is, right, that the father, who doesn't really have a name, or he does have a name, but he only says it once and I've forgotten about it. The father believes, or maybe he doesn't, but he believes that his wife is actually not dead, right? Is not dead. She's being held hostage in this kind of village where he originally met her, or not hostage, she's being kept against her will, and he needs to go to this village and liberate her. And for various reasons, he needs his son and his daughter to help him do this. All right. And so by various means, they end up going to this village where there is an enormous battle scene. Now, a couple of things that really got on my nerves about the film. The first thing is, this kind of village is in this kind of idyllic Shangri-La kind of landscape. And of course it's surrounded by all these weird, magical, fluffy kind of My Little Pony type animals. And you think, oh, for God's sake, I've seen these magical animals so many times. And it just seems to me like a way for Disney Studios to find some new stock for their stores. Okay, so it's like, oh, mummy, can I have one of those? Oh, daddy, can I have one of those? Yes, son, it's only £99, and then you pull a string and it's back and it talks. Right, so that bit really annoys me. And then they get into this big battle because the father, right, is trying to break in to this kind of fortress thing where he thinks his wife is being held, and where the soul-sucking monster, right, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Michael Caine, would you know, needs to be released so he can find his wife. Now, if I sound a little bit confused, right, it is, I did get a little bit confused. I do get kind of sidetracked by plot points. I'm not a 12-year-old for whom this film is obviously designed. I'm obviously 65, and I do struggle with some of the kind of concepts in this film. Anyway, what happens, of course, is that the last hour and a half, right, of a 2.25 hour film is this great big battle where everybody's fighting each other. Nobody gets really killed, or if they do get killed, they all come back to life. And then for various reasons, the son, right, the Shang-Chi of the title, the son releases or finds a dragon. I'm not quite sure why the dragon emerges, and the dragon turns out to be a good dragon as opposed to a bad dragon. So that Shang-Chi and his sister then on the dragon fight the big soul-sucking monster. And in the end, the monster is killed by somebody. Now, I'm not going to tell you who kills the monster, although I will say it's telegraphed about an hour and a quarter before it actually happens. So, you know, if you're 10 or 11 and you're struggling to work out who killed the monster, well, I'm sure your parents will tell you because they're actually quite straightforward. So the film is like it's a film of 3/3, if you can picture that. The first third is actually really quite enjoyable and quite fun, and it's a kind of Bruce Lee kung fu fighting type of film. And the last 2/3 just descends into a kind of silly let's all battle the monster CGI kind of mess, basically. Now, I have a couple of questions for my regular viewers who may be able to help me. Now, the first question is, right, why did martial arts, i.e. kung fu, karate, jiu-jitsu, there's various other things, why are those primarily developed in the East, in kind of the Asian civilizations, where in the kind of Western European civilizations, if you like, it's mainly some kind of wrestling, which seems to be a kind of Greco-Roman Turkish thing where a bunch of men who've got a lot of olive oil left over decide to cover themselves in oil and then wrestle. Whereas in the East, it's the martial arts stuff. So I'm not being flippant there. I'm genuinely curious as to why that happened. The other thing I want to know is, has it always been the case that women were just as keen or just as involved in the martial arts as the men? Or is that something that's kind of relatively recently portrayed in films as if they always were the martial artists? So those are two questions that I'm genuinely interested in, and I do not know the answer. My son said to me, well, why don't you Google it? But that just seems a bit too straightforward to me. The other thing I don't like about the film is that Ben Kingsley appears as a character. Now, having watched some of the Marvel films, I do remember that Ben Kingsley appears in one of the earlier Iron Man films. And my son explained to it, he used a kind of acronym, I think, which was RETCON. And that was something to do with retroactive con something or other. I can't remember what it was he said, and I don't fully remember the explanation that he gave me, but he did explain it all to me. I think that Ben Kingsley strikes the kind of wrong note in this. I think he gives a good performance. It's quite a funny performance, actually, but it's in the wrong film. And he also has with him this ridiculous fluffy animal that he calls Morris, which is a kind of flappy bird thing, but it has no face and no particular head. So it gives an opportunity for Disney Studios to produce a kind of fluffy, bulbous kind of round bally growth of things with wings, which presumably any child can give. They can give it any name that they want, apart from Morris, I suppose, and the Disney Studios can charge £99 for it. So that really kind of annoyed me. So my conclusion about the film, incidentally, when I went to see Suicide Squad, and there's a review of the Suicide Squad on my channel, which you saw a few weeks ago, I really went to see Suicide Squad expecting it to be rubbish, and actually I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great fun. And I'd seen a few reviews of this film, so I went along expecting it to be quite good, and actually I thought it was rubbish, right? And the reason it's rubbish is because the first third is good and the second third is just boring beyond belief. There's just endless fight scenes. It's endless CGI, and there's always big, thunderbolts, and there's big waves crashing, and there's all this magic with the 10 rings. And I did think, my son was saying about The Courier being such a dull title, which I agree, incidentally. Was Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I mean, you don't think, oh, blimey, I want to know about the Ten Rings. Oh, God, I need to see that. You just think, oh, God, is that the best they can come up with? And the other thing, the kind of conclusion that you draw about this film, and my son always makes me sit through the credits, right? Because he's seen there's a special scene that comes at the end of the credits, which therefore forces you to sit through an hour and a half of strolling credits where it shows there are about 30,000 background artists, background painters, matte artists, CGI, digital studio effects, this, that and the other, involved in making the film, but there's only 3 people involved in the script, right? So I think they should turn that around. I think there should be 30,000 people, right, involved in producing a decent script, and then 3 people to do the kind of IT stuff, which, let's face it, is not that difficult. It's just software, as Bill Gates would say. It's just software. So my thoughts are, if you want to see a really good martial arts film, I mean, can you beat Enter the Dragon, Way of the Dragon, where he fights Chuck Norris? Or I would look up something maybe from about 10, 15 years ago, something like that, called House of Flying Daggers, which I thought was an absolutely brilliant film and has got a title, incidentally, that makes you want to see it. And if you want something that's kind of Japanese, Chinese, cerebral, an absolute tour de force of filmmaking, then go and see Kurosawa's remake of King Lear, which is called Ran. And it's made the days before CGI, and it just shows what can be done when you've got thousands of extras and a brilliant filmmaker, as opposed to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which shows to me what you can do with a lot of CGI and a not very good script. But they do leave room for a sequel. I did think Katie was a good character. I think the guy who plays Shang-Chi is a great martial artist and not a bad actor for what he has to do in this film. But the rest of it, I don't know. And the baddie, the father, the guy whose name I don't actually know, the guy of the Ten Rings, well, I can't really tell you what happens to him in the end because you won't want to go and see the film. And I'm not in the business of plot spoiling, even if I am in the business of saying that I thought Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was pants. So, there you go. You pays your money and you takes your choice. Maybe we should have gone to see the Courier. Thanks for watching. See you next time.